They are built, as you know, and it's no ranking, around prosperity, security, democracy. These are the overarching topics. And this all happens against a backdrop of competitiveness that we need, competitiveness for the twin transitions, the decarbonization and the digitalization of our economies. I'm emphasizing that because, of course, these topics are also very much intertwined. They are cross-cutting. The whole college is committed to the topic of competitiveness, decarbonization, and digitalization. So this time with this new college, we have kind of dissipated the former relatively rigid stovepipes that we had. And this is one of the main recommendations of the Draghi report: more fluid, more intertwined, more coordination of the different policies. Now, let me briefly introduce, and it's again no ranking, the 6 main topics. First, it's about strengthening our tech sovereignty, our security, and our democracy. For that, we want to build a competitive, decarbonized, and circular economy with a fair transition for all. We will only be able to do that if we design a bold industrial strategy with innovation and investment at its heart. So to a certain extent, it's not preserving the old, but via innovation and investment really embracing the new. We need to boost European cohesion and regions to take everyone along. And for that, we need to support people. We need to develop skills. And all this founded on our excellent social model. Finally, this was a lot looking at the European Union. Reflected in the titles of the executive vice presidents, which I will present in a moment. There's another principle. The treaty says very clearly each member of the college is equal, and each commissioner has an equal responsibility to deliver on our priorities. That means that all commissioners must work together, and it is in this spirit that each executive vice president will also have a portfolio to focus on, for which they will have to work with other commissioners. So in simple words, what affects security also affects the economy, what affects climate or environment also affects people, and vice versa, the business community, and you can go on with that. This is also the reason why this time we do not have the extra layer of vice presidents. So we have a leaner structure and a more interactive and interlinked structure. Another topic is balance in general, be it gender balance, be it the balance of the different topics, but of course also geography. As you will see, we now have 11 women as candidates for the college that I will present today. That is 40%, a share of 40%. When I received the first nominations, and I looked at the whole pattern and the whole tableau, we were at a point where we had a share of 22% women and 78% men. So you can imagine that this was completely unacceptable. So I worked intensively with the member states, and we were able to improve the share to 40% women and 60% men. And it shows that as much as we have achieved, there is still so much more work to do. And with that in mind, I assigned 6 executive vice presidents. The next slide, please. The 6 executive vice presidents, and actually at the very end you get the overall tableau with all the names and all the portfolios. So you'll get it all. 6 executive vice presidents. I assigned 4 women and 2 men. So you recall the share of the college is 40% women, 60% men. We flipped this. And we have, as a proposal, 6 executive vice presidents, 4 women, 2 men. If you look at the geographical balance, 3 are from member states that joined before the fall of the Iron Curtain. 3 are from member states that joined after Europe was reunited. From the Baltics, the Nordics, and Eastern Europe. We have ministers and prime ministers, very different backgrounds, with one common goal, and that is to make Europe stronger. So, allow me to introduce them, and please the next slide. The first executive vice president will be Teresa Ribera, responsible for a clean, just, and competitive transition. She will also be responsible for the competition policy. So she has the competition portfolio. She will guide the work to ensure that Europe stays on track for its goals set out in the European Green Deal, and that we decarbonize and industrialize our economy at the same time. Next slide, please. Henna Virkkunen will be the Executive Vice President for Tech Sovereignty, Security and Democracy. She will also be responsible for the portfolio of digital and frontier technologies. I will ask Henna to look at the internal and external aspects of security, but also to strengthen the foundations of our democracy, such as the rule of law, and protect it whenever it comes under attack. Next slide, please. Stéphane Séjourné will be the Executive Vice President for Prosperity and Industrial Strategy. He will also be responsible for the industry, SMEs, and the single market portfolio. He will guide the work to put in place the conditions for our companies to thrive, for investment and innovation, to economic stability and trade and economic security. Next slide, please. Kaja Kallas, as you already know, will be our High Representative and Vice President. We are in an era of geostrategic rivalries and instability. Our foreign and security policy must be designed with this reality in mind, and it must be more aligned with our own interests. I know that I can count on her to bring all this together and be the bridge between our internal and our external policies, and to ensure that we have a geopolitical commission. Next slide, please. I'm very happy to entrust the role of Executive Vice President for People, Skills and Preparedness to Roxana Minzatu. She will have the portfolio responsibility for skills, education and quality jobs and social rights. This is under the umbrella of a union of skills and the European Pillar of Social Rights. She will focus on those areas which are crucial to unite our society. Next slide, please. Raffaele Fitto will be the Executive Vice President for Cohesion and Reforms. He will be responsible for the portfolio dealing with cohesion policy, regional development and cities. We will draw on his extensive experience to help modernize and strengthen our cohesion investments and growth policies. This is the team of Executive Vice Presidents, which will work hand in hand with each other and with all commissioners. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce them all to you. So I need the next slide. Yeah, there we are. We go one by one. I will start here with Maroš Šefčovič. Next slide, please. Maroš Šefčovič. I'm very happy to give him 2 roles. He will be the Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security. This is a new portfolio, which also includes customs policy. I have also entrusted him with a 2nd role, the Commissioner for Interinstitutional Relations and Transparency, and for this 2nd role, he will report directly to me. Next slide, please. Valdis Dombrovskis will also have a double role. He will be the Commissioner for Economy and Productivity. I have also given him the role of Commissioner for Implementation and Simplification. He will there also report directly to me on this part of his work. Next slide, please. Dubravka Šuica will be the Commissioner for the Mediterranean. I'm entrusting her with this new role. She will also be responsible for the wider southern neighbourhood. She will work closely with Kaja Kallas and many other commissioners to develop our shared interests with the region, and she will be responsible for the portfolio of demography. Next slide, please. Oliver Vaheli will be the Commissioner for Health and Animal Welfare. He will be responsible for building a European Health Union and continuing the work of beating cancer and on preventive health. Next slide, please. Wopke Hoekstra will be the Commissioner for Climate, Net Zero and Clean Growth. He will continue to work on implementation and adaptation, on climate diplomacy and decarbonisation, and he will also be responsible for taxation. Next slide, please. Andrius Kubilius will be the Commissioner for Defence and Space. He will work on developing the European Defence Union and boosting our investment and industrial capacity. Next slide, please. Marta Kos. It should be noted that the government of Slovenia has suggested Marta Kos as a member of the college. The nomination procedure, which involves the consultation of the national parliament for a non-binding opinion, is ongoing. She will be Commissioner for Enlargement, also responsible for the eastern neighbourhood, and she will work on supporting Ukraine and continuing the work on reconstruction and support the candidate countries to prepare for their accession. Next slide, please. Josef Sikela will be the Commissioner for International Partnerships. He will lead the important work on our big investment programme, Global Gateway, for infrastructure abroad. He will ensure that we develop mutual beneficial partnerships which invest heavily in a common future. Next slide, please. Kostas Kadis will be the Commissioner for Fisheries and Oceans. I count on his experience to help build a resilient, competitive and sustainable sector and present the first European Oceans Pact. Next slide, please. Maria Albuquerque will be the Commissioner for Financial Services and the Savings and Investment Union. This will be vital to strengthen and complete our capital markets union and to ensure that private investment powers and our productivity and powers our innovation. Next slide, please. Hadia Labib will be the Commissioner for Preparedness and Crisis Management. This is another new portfolio which will look at the resilience and preparedness and civil protection beside humanitarian aid. She will therefore be responsible for leading our efforts on crisis management and humanitarian aid, and she will also be responsible for the topic of equality. Next slide, please. Magnus Brunner will be the Commissioner for Internal Affairs and Migration. He will, of course, focus on the implementation of the Pact on Asylum and Migration, but also on strengthening our borders and developing a new internal security strategy. Next slide, please. Jessica Roswall. Jessica Roswall will be the Commissioner for Environment, Water Resilience, and a competitive circular economy. She will have an important job to help preserve our environment and put nature on the balance sheet. She will help develop a more circular, more competitive economy, and she will lead the work on water resilience, which is a big priority for the years that we have ahead of us. Next slide, please. Piotr Serafin will be the Commissioner for Budget, Anti-Fraud and Public Administration. He will also report directly to me, and he will notably focus on preparing the next long-term budget and ensure we have a modern institution to deliver for Europeans. Next slide, please. Dan Jorgensen will be the Commissioner for Energy and Housing. His work will help to bring down energy prices, invest in clean energy, and ensure that we cut our dependencies. He will be the first ever Commissioner for Housing, looking at all the aspects from energy efficiency to investment and construction that define that topic. Next slide, please. Ekaterina Zaharyeva will be the Commissioner for Startups, Research and Innovation. We must put research and innovation, science and technology at the centre of our economy. She will help ensure that we invest more and more focused our spending on strategic priorities and groundbreaking innovation. Next slide, please. Michael McGrath. He will be the Commissioner for Democracy, Justice and the Rule of Law. I have entrusted him with the responsibility to take forward the European Democracy Shield. He will also lead our work on the rule of law, anti-corruption and consumer protection. Next slide, please. Apostolos Tzitzikostas will be the Commissioner for Sustainable Transport and Tourism. He is responsible for mobility of goods and people. They are essential sectors for our competitiveness, but also for our transitions, for connecting people and driving local economies. Next slide, please. Christoph Hansen will be the Commissioner for Agriculture and Food. He will have the task to bring to life the report and the recommendation of the strategic dialogue on the future of agriculture. And based on the strategic dialogue, he will develop a vision for agriculture and food in the first 100 days of the mandate. Next slide, please. Glenn McAuliffe will be the Commissioner for Intergenerational Fairness, Culture, Youth and Sport. Intergenerational fairness is a cross-cutting topic. It affects all of us, but especially young people. And it is about the right balance in a society, and I have entrusted Glenn to watch over this. Next slide, please. So, the key message is that wherever we come from, whatever our job title, we must all work together. We will have open debates. We are all independent in thought and action. The only guiding star is the European interest. We will all have to take ownership of all what we have agreed in the college. And this is the team that you see now on the screen that I put forward today. On this basis, once the European Parliament has received the official letter from the Council, and of course in agreement with the President of the Commission, then the Parliament may proceed with the formal proceedings for the nomination of the new college, always in accordance with the rules of procedure. I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take your questions now.
Thank you very much. Before we move to your questions, one technical comment. We will be organizing tomorrow morning in Brussels, but also available, of course, on Interactio, a technical briefing for your more detailed questions on the composition of the college and the portfolios. And secondly, of course, all the relevant information which has been presented will be available on European
of people wanting their leader to follow the same religion.
The man suspected in the apparent assassination